Curry, you got the Warriors, you got so much goodness in this game, and this is Steph's first start since March 16th, and Steph got going early. How about that little English from Draymond, and then the step back? Will Barton, you're my guy, but there is nothing any human being has ever been able to do against Steph in those moments. But look, they were battling. And even here, you know, in closeout games, when they get tight, things can get chippy. Draymond, Aaron Gordon getting a little action, getting a little feisty. There was nothing there.
He could have stayed down and rested, but he got up.
Yeah, Draymond was, you know, he just setting the tone. Set the tone, big fella. That's what we like. And then here we jump to the third quarter, and look at this. Denver up by 7, and Steph Curry.
Didn't that even move?
No, the net never moves. That's the problem.
Ridiculous.
But back-to-back threes by Steph Curry. Lead goes from 7 down to 1. But here, again, look at this. Denver is fighting. Boogie Cousins, who had himself a night, knocks down the 3 in the third. Warriors struggling a little bit, but here in the fourth, this is when things get interesting. You got Denver up by 4 after the Jokic little jumper. And then here, ball movement. Look at this. Look, Denver's moving. Everybody's scrambling, trying to figure out.
Payton.
And it ends up in Gary Payton II. Pop loves it. And then here, look at this. Again, movement. Steph doing it all. Inside, outside work. And he's going around every single person on that Denver Nuggets to try and get it done.
He did the put them to sleep gesture?
I just told him thank you for making me better. It's absolutely incredible to play against a guy like that. Incredible talent. Just told him thank you for making me better. It's an honor and a pleasure to play against someone so talented and so skilled. And you know, usually when you have guys that talented and that skilled, they're a little soft. He's far from soft. You know, he's an absolutely incredible player.
That was Draymond Green talking about Jokic. And look, Jokic is a special player.
Yeah.
It is tough that we haven't been able to see him with really his full roster for almost 2 years, but that might not stop him from winning a second MVP. But Ramona, I want to start with you. What did you learn from the Warriors in this series? Their first time in the postseason in 3 years. What did you learn from them?
Well, we forget that they came in with a lot of questions. And Steph Curry's health was one of them. I think we've answered that one. Steph looks good. He came back. They brought him off the bench. Jordan Poole became a star in those games. Denver counters by putting a better defender on him, by putting Aaron Gordon on him, shut him down a little bit, gets into foul trouble last night. Who do they go to? Gary Payton Jr.
Yes.
They have some depth. And if you would have told me that the Warriors could have this kind of performance this early in the playoffs with Steph Curry coming off an injury, with Andre Iguodala going down in the middle of the series with a neck injury, with Draymond having to stop Jokic, the reigning MVP, I mean, that is a great performance from the Warriors early in the playoffs. And I like what Steph said after the game. He said, you know, we haven't had to close teams out in a while. We forgot what it feels like. And they let them stay in it, but they got it done in that fourth quarter. Yeah,
and we're going to bring in Brian Windhorst. You heard the comments that Draymond Green said about Jokic. What did you take from that conversation that he had with the reporters giving Jokic all of those compliments?
I honestly was wondering who he was talking about when he was talking about guys who are that talented or soft. Made me wonder, you know, there's a possible big man he could see in the next round. I was wondering if he was starting to play with the head games. Hey, I got to give compliments to the incredible mid-series adjustment by Steve Kerr, bringing Steph Curry into the starting lineup. Tremendous stuff. Great move. Obviously worked out great. In all seriousness, the Warriors showed rhythm in this series that we haven't seen since December or January before Klay Thompson came back. That's the good news. The bad news is the last 2 games of this series, they lost their rhythm a little bit. So they need to tighten it back up. In this next round, though, the display is the best word I can put between that the Grizzlies and Wolves are putting on. They are going to have a major experience advantage in that next series. And if they can get that rhythm back from the first 3 games of this series, boy, the teeth are out. Watch out, Warriors.
Well, and this is the thing. You talk about experience, and that's what I've been seeing lacking in that Minnesota versus Memphis series. Both teams playing hard.
Oh, really?
Number
you have
one.
Seen that?
Yeah, I've
Veteran
seen that.
Analysis there.
Thank you. It's my bad. You're spicy today, and I dig it. That's the energy I want. But one versus 2 in the offense, you've seen a ton of that. Just when you were kind of looking forward to that series, do you think experience is the ultimate separator? Do you think that there's a talent on one side or the other that kind of takes the cake?
Yeah, and I also think it applies to the coaching staff too. Chris Finch at times, even though I think he's a great coach, he's looked lost as his team was in free fall. Taylor Jenkins, even though that was an amazing play by Ja at the end of the game, Taylor Jenkins jumping around the sideline, it's awesome to see, but it's an indication of an inexperienced coach. These teams are experiencing this for the first time. It's amazing to watch, but the Warriors have got to be like, okay, come play the adults here pretty soon. Now, I will say this, if you're a Warriors fan, I would be worried about Karl Towns. That is a real matchup challenge for the Warriors. It has really undercut what the Grizzlies do defensively. They have been scrambling to deal with Towns during this series, even though that's a 7 seed. So I know you're not like, you're probably, if you're a Warriors fan, saying, oh, I hope that the Wolves can get 2 wins because they're the 7 seed. I almost think that you'd rather see the Grizzlies and that beast Ja Morant, because the Towns matchup for the Warriors, and if Draymond is watching right now, he's probably cursing at me, saying, let me at him. He was already working on it yesterday. But I think the Towns matchup is the one they'd like to avoid in that second round.
Okay, so I went and looked this up, Brian. I knew you were going to go there.
Really quickly, that's a bold statement because he just went toe-to-toe with the MVP and maybe the back-to-back MVP that plays a similar position, more skilled, more talent. Ramona?
Yeah, okay, so Towns is an incredible shooter. He has so much. I mean, 5 years ago, you would have said Karl Towns is the guy you want to start a franchise with, okay, in this league. He hasn't built off of that, okay? When Karl Towns won Rookie of the Year, he finished first. Jokic finished third that year.
Yeah.
Things have changed. They have swapped positions in this league. Brian, I went and looked it up. Draymond Green, last 5 seasons defending Nikola Jokic, 13 of 30 against him. Draymond Green defending Karl Towns, 13 of 30 the last 5 years. He's done a pretty good job on him now. Towns' game, though, you're right, it does stretch the floor out. It'll force Draymond away from the basket. But when the Warriors play small, then it's just a matter of can Draymond deal with the height disadvantage there. And I think he's done that. And throughout his career, he's done that. Maybe it takes Kevon Looney away a little bit, but it spreads him out a little bit. I feel almost like if they get Memphis, it reminds me a bit of when this young team is coming. This is going to be the team in the NBA for the next several years. Reminds me a bit of when the Lakers played against the Oklahoma City Thunder in 2010, when the Thunder had Harden, Westbrook, Durant, and you knew that team was coming, but the Lakers had one more gasp in them before the Thunder was going to take over. That's what that series would feel like in the second round here.
Yeah, and look, one thing that we will agree on is when I look at both Memphis and Minnesota, you saw Steven Adams has been taken out of this series.
Yep.
And if Steven Adams is going to be taken out of the series, and he was so important to everything that they did during the regular season, if he's going to be taken out in that series, I don't see how he gets to play against the Golden State Warriors, even with Draymond. Because if you do a drop with Draymond, that means Draymond is just doing passes. And then you go Jaren Jackson Jr. And Jaren Jackson Jr., he's been in foul trouble. He hasn't had the impact that you thought he was going to have.
Because he's guarding Towns.
Yeah, he's been trying to do tons of foul trouble. I think Draymond would do a little bit better job of that. But on that Minnesota side, they have all of the tools. They have played better basketball in this series for longer than the Grizzlies have, but the Grizzlies are up 3-2. If they would have won that game 3, and where they had a 21-point lead,
2 games they should have won already.
2 games they should have won. This series could potentially be over. So I think it's going to be really, really tight. Quickly, Ramona, if you were the Golden State Warriors, which team would you want to play?
I'll go with Minnesota just because I think they have the experience. But I have a lot of respect for Memphis. I just think they're so deep. They're built a lot of ways like the Warriors were built at the beginning of their dynasty, just long, athletic, young players who can switch everything. So I'd probably rather play the Timberwolves, but that's, they're 7-10 against the Timberwolves the last 5 years. So the Timberwolves have taken some games off. And then you just remember the last 5 years. Minnesota wasn't good, so the fact they have 7 wins against them is something.
Well, neither were the Golden State Warriors the last 2 years. In all honesty, they weren't very good. But and then you forget about the Wiggins. You got Wiggins, you got D'Angelo Russell. So that actually adds a little bit of element. But God, how great would it be to see Ja Morant, Steph Curry, Desmond Bane, Klay Thompson, Patrick Beverly, if he could get there and he can rally this team for 2 more wins, and then what D'Angelo Russell. So either way, the Golden State Warriors are an amazing spot. They get to sit and wait. And I'll tell you this from experience, the only thing that they're waiting on is they want a Game 7. They want this series to go as long as they possibly can. They want these guys to beat themselves up. They want guys to be exhausted mentally, physically, and emotionally, because that's where you get the advantage. When you're rested, when you're ready to go, when you're ready to fight, that's when you get the advantage. But still to come, what a series we've got in round 2 in just a little bit.